Good morning, everyone. Kate Bohr and Fiona Pearman here, authors of Core Confidence, here for the last of our March lives on this year's International Women's Day theme, Choose to Challenge. Although, Fee, we were talking yesterday about how we could really talk about this topic all year.
Yes, the more we've dug into this and the more we've looked at what choose to challenge actually means and the benefits to organizations, this is not just a once off thing you might want to do in your organization for March and to think about. It's really about thinking what's going on in our culture. Have we got an in culture that allows people to speak up, that allows them to call out things, that allows them to challenge things that are not working? And while this started out maybe talking about inappropriate behavior or bullying, harassment, all of the things we really know we don't want in any sort of organization or culture, it's got bigger scope than that. There's definitely more. If we can challenge things that aren't working, if we can challenge old processes, if we can challenge the way that we do things around here, and we can think about new and innovative and exciting ways to shift some of the things that aren't working in a business, having permission to challenge becomes much more about us as an organization and what we can achieve in the world beyond just the things that maybe aren't working.
Yeah, I think today we want to talk about a piece that perhaps not many people have spoken about, and something, it's a conversation we don't have in organizations, which is how do you receive challenge. So it's one thing, and we do training and coaching on how to challenge, but very rarely is there a conversation in organizations around, okay, well, how do we receive challenge in a constructive way? How do you invite it in? How do you lean into it so that it can be as constructive and as positive a conversation and experience for both parties, but particularly as the person who's receiving it? How do you do that in a way that doesn't mean you're meeting it with defensiveness or a responsive attack, which immediately makes it a unconstructive and particularly unuseful conversation, because immediately we've often gone from a conversation around something tactical to something that's often then becomes personal. And then in that dynamic, which often then triggers emotions in that dynamic, there's often, it's very circular, and there's no good outcomes there. So how do we do it in a way that we leave the personal at the door, keep it really focused on good, constructive, objective, purpose-centered conversation, and make sure that that conversation is often in service of the intent with why the conversation started in the first place.
Yes, I love the opportunity here to actually receive and learn something because I'm open to being challenged. I'm open for some new intel or some new perspective. And if we can hold that, and if we can think of the other person, actually, they've got my best interests at heart. The reason they're raising this is because they care enough to take it on, to raise this to my consciousness, to make me aware of something that's not actually working as well as it could. And when we think about how can I get better at receiving challenge, how can I be a person that welcomes challenge and makes that more of a cultural norm in my organization, we've got a few tips around that. And firstly, it is being prepared to listen. As you said, stop taking it so personally and worrying about, is this an attack on me? Is this something I've done wrong? And getting into all of that kind of sense of shame and worry, and more about how can I listen? How can I ask some good questions and get curious about what is it that's not landing well here? Or what is it that's not working as effectively as it could? Because I could actually learn something. And if we can approach this with some curiosity and want to find out more, that actually means we're right in that constructive conversation. We're right in unpacking something valuable for ourselves, but very often valuable for the people around us and the organization as a whole.
Yeah, I think then the other side of listening is ask great questions, right? So if you're listening in a really present way, in a way that we're seeking to understand, then we can ask great questions from a place of curiosity that says, how can I make this constructive? Help me understand your perspective, so that I can, have the benefit of that perspective that you're seeking to share with me. So I think listening and ask great questions, again, from a place of objectivity where we're not taking things personally, so that we can suspend judgment and just go, okay, let me step into your shoes, then let me understand where you're coming from, because you're seeking to share this, And I think coming from the assumption, from positive intent, that you're seeking to share it with me because there is a good reason for me, for the team, for the organization, for the customer, whoever the stakeholder is, with the assumption of positive intent, then we can assume that there is value for us in at least being able to seek to understand. That doesn't mean we need to agree, but we can at least, with an objective foundation, seek to understand what they're trying to communicate, and particularly the outcome, that our understanding of that message, how that might benefit the relevant stakeholders.
Yes, I think you've got a lot of things you can draw on from yourself when you are doing this work. And one of the things is to notice your own state. So, how am I responding? How am I feeling right now? What's going on for me? And if you notice that you are quite heightened and you feel defensive and you feel as though you want to push back against what's coming at you, it's possible that maybe there's a moment, or even giving yourself a little bit of time to just absorb what's going on, and then to come back at a time when you feel calmer, more resourced to have the conversation. So it's also about noticing what's going on for you, and then taking good steps to make sure that you're actually in the place where, yep, I'm now ready to have this conversation. And I like this concept that, if I could just say to myself, if this was true, if this piece of, I might be receiving as criticism or challenge or whatever it is, if that were true, what might I want to learn about, or what might I want to do? And it's almost, again, that curiosity thing of not having to accept it absolutely as, this is the truth, but just unpacking it and making sure I'm getting some good understanding so that we can move forward.
Yeah, I think, and look, you and I have done this a little bit recently. Surrender and just soak it all in. Be present to the conversation, particularly if you find yourself wanting to disagree. Surrender, soak it all in, and say thank you and say, hey, let me just process that. And if it's okay, let's touch base in a day or two, and we can perhaps have a conversation about next steps from there. Giving yourself the gift of time to let it all settle in and allow your unconscious mind to process can be really powerful. Of course, it can prevent you from saying things that maybe just are really unhelpful, because it's human nature to feel defensive, to feel, like we want to respond if we don't agree with something that's coming at us. And it's not always the best use of time, or it's always almost not the best response to that feedback in the moment. So there may be a time where you need to respond, giving yourself the benefit of some time, but also the benefit of calibrating the information you're receiving against other pieces of data, whether that's some trusted colleagues, mentors, stakeholders, calibrating against your own perspective. And that's where the benefit of just kind of that unconscious processing comes in, so that when you come back, you can have a more considered and informed conversation around the data that you've received at that point in time. So I think lots of really great pieces in there in terms of how to, really lean in instead of defend and often attack, and push back. How do we lean into these conversations in a way that really is supportive for everybody?
Yes, the more we can meet these conversations in a state of curiosity and openness, dropping those instinctive reactions, the more we open up the possibility for other people in the organization to do it too. We talk a lot about ripple effect, and this, I think, is one of the most powerful ripple effects you can have. When you demonstrate not going on the attack or not being defensive, it actually says to other people, oh, there's a different way of responding. And that can really shift some of the dynamics that are holding organizations back on these very important ways of being, and encouraging that constructive culture that we all say we want.
Yeah, nice. So let's leave it there. That's it for March. If you've enjoyed today's Facebook Live or any of our other competence conversations, please share them with your network. If you've got comments, questions, please feel free to reach out to us personally. And if you'd like to go deeper with your relationship with Core Competence, please visit our website, corecompetence.com.au.